Welcome, everyone, to the NoDQ.com live recap of AEW Dynamite for Wednesday, January 15th, 2025, the Maximum Carnage edition of Dynamite. Shout out to everybody watching this, whether it's live or on demand. I appreciate your viewership and support. Now, let's get to Dynamite. This show was in Cincinnati, Ohio. A smaller venue, maybe about 2,000 people capacity. I will say this, the vibe of the show was a lot better than most recent Dynamites. These are the types of arenas or buildings that AEW should be running in for the foreseeable future until they can boost their attendance numbers up. It's just an overall better look for the company when you can see fans all over the building, and I feel like the sound comes through better in the smaller building. When you run those arenas that have 15,000 seats capacity and you only have about 3,000 people there, it doesn't tend to sound all that good. Anyways, we had a video package to hype up the main event. Jon Moxley defending the AEW World Championship against Powerhouse Hobbs. And then we had our opening match of the evening, Kenny Omega versus Brian Cage. Now, I've said this before in other recaps. Anytime Brian Cage is on Dynamite, he's almost certainly losing. Match was good. It was a good match. This was Kenny Omega's first match back on Dynamite. This was basically a showcase match to reintroduce Kenny Omega to the audience watching and get him reestablished on Dynamite. It served its purpose. You had the outside interference from the Don Callis family, and Lance Archer was out there. Even Don Callis himself took a few cheap shots at Omega. They had the elevated ramp, which I've always been a fan of. It's a WCW thing going way back, and WWE never uses the elevated ramp. So I like when AEW, WCW, TNA did, ECW did. I like the elevated ramp just because it's something different. Cage powerbombed Omega from the ramp into the ring, and then he targeted Omega's midsection because Omega had the battle with diverticulitis. Omega was able to make his comeback, though. He hit the V trigger and then the one-winged angel and got the 1-2-3 victory. But then after the match, we had the attack from the Don Callis family. And then Will Ospreay ran down to make the save. And then Konosuke Takeshita showed up. And the numbers game caught up with Omega and Ospreay. And they were laid out by the Don Callis family. Solid match in the post-match. Ospreay and Omega, they're working together, and they'll be feuding with the Don Callis family now for the time being. But we're all still waiting to see Omega either go for Okada or go for Jon Moxley in the AEW World title. That's what we're waiting for. Ricochet came to the ring for a promo, got a lot of boos, and he was trying to milk it and react to it like Dominic Mysterio. He had some golden scissors in his breast pocket, but then Swerve Strickland's music hit, and we had Prince Nana getting into the ring with a chair, sneak attack on Ricochet, hit him with the chair. Swerve Strickland then ran down with a chain, but Ricochet was able to escape just in the nick of time. Now, I had one criticism of this segment, and that's Ricochet selling for Nana. I know Nana was a wrestler at one point, but he's a manager. And I really don't think Ricochet should be selling all that much for Nana. Like, the chair shot itself was pretty weak too, and I think Ricochet sold it a little bit too much. But other than that, it was a fine segment. It set up Ricochet versus Swerve Strickland, and that match will be taking place in 3 weeks on AEW Dynamite. I believe it will be in Atlanta. We then had the Hurt Business versus Private Party and Mark Briscoe, 6-man tag team match. And we had Hurt Business going right after Private Party and Mark Briscoe. MVP went at it with Mark Briscoe. And then after the commercial break, Private Party tagged in. They started to build up some momentum, but then the Hurt Business regained the upper hand. Lashley hit a spear to Mark Quinn, and then Shelton Benjamin took out Zay with the German suplex, followed by the super kick, and got the 1-2-3 victory. Match was all right. It was a very basic match. Private Party as tag team champions kind of feel like a bust at this point, I have to say. Somebody had to lose this match, and I guess Briscoe wasn't going to lose 2 weeks in a row when you can't really have the Hurt Business losing, especially when this was MVP's first match back in quite some time. But I agree with Matthew. I think you just got to switch these titles as soon as possible now and get them on the Hurt Business. I mean, yeah, Private Party hasn't really worked out too well as tag team champions. I mean, they don't feel like that big of a deal. They just don't. I tend to even forget that they're on the roster and they're the tag team champions. We had a video package from Mercedes Moné, just reminding everybody that she has all the titles. She's rich. She's famous, yada, yada, yada. Then we had a very interesting segment, to say the least. We had Jeff Jarrett, the Loust Outlaw, continuing to get TV time, even though he allegedly broke 1,000 guitars and never drew a dime. That's the old saying. Jeff Jarrett started to cut a promo. MJF interrupted. So we basically had part 2 of their verbal confrontation from last week. And MJF was bringing up how Jeff Jarrett is the last thing you see before your favorite wrestling company dies. And then brought up Jeff Jarrett's battle with alcohol addiction. Said he's going to send Jeff Jarrett back to rehab where he belongs. And told Jeff Jarrett to make sure his sexy MILF of a wife, Karen Jarrett, sticks around. And then he said once he's done with her, he'll send her back to Jarrett. And then Jarrett can taste the balls of both a generational talent and an Olympic gold medalist. Basically making a reference to Karen Jarrett being with Kurt Angle before she went with Jeff Jarrett. Now, Jarrett had his response and said that the fans have awakened his passion. Competing in the Owen Hart tournament got him motivated. And he said that everything MJF has done, Jarrett did it first, but better. Yeah, that's right, Jeff. Better. You could take With My Baby Tonight and stick it up your butt. Way better than what MJF has been saying in his promos. But anyways, Jarrett said that MJF had a call girl for a mother, an ambulance chasing father, and then said that MJF's lady is a Canadian call girl. And then he said that MJF has been drowning in his own shit. He's a scared little boy. His best years are behind him at 28. And then he said that MJF is scared of becoming a one-hit wonder. And speaking of one-hit wonder, MJF relying on his big hit, and that's pushing the envelope and trying to create controversy because MJF fired back saying he didn't need Daddy to start his own wrestling company or become a top guy. He said he's the best in the world. He got screwed out of his title. And he said, not a single fan has given a shit about Jeff Jarrett. Said Jeff Jarrett is nothing but a leech riding off the coattails of his deceased friend, Owen Hart. And that was all Jeff Jarrett could take. They got into a fight, and then Karen Jarrett came out there, and MJF hid behind Karen Jarrett and made his escape. They're trying to make something out of this, but man, why is MJF feuding with Jeff Jarrett in 2025? Why is Jeff Jarrett getting so much TV time? They're treating him like Sting or John Cena, and with all due respect to Jeff Jarrett, he was not at their caliber of superstardom. Just saying. Segment was fine, but it did come off as a little bit desperate. You know, the Owen Hart line. MJF's really trying. Like I said, he's relying on the one hit, and that one hit is just being as outrageous and offensive as possible, and he's doubling down on it. But I'm ready for something else. I have to be honest here. Segment was fine, but I feel like MJF can be doing so much more at this point. We had Christian Cage versus Hook. Now, Hook attacked Christian during Christian's entrance, and then the match finally started. Christian begged off and then tried to be friendly with Hook, and he even hugged Hook, but then Hook, of course, suplexed Christian, beat the crap out of him. And then after the commercial break, Christian was able to gain the upper hand when he tripped Hook. Hook fell spine first on the steel steps, and then Christian hit not one, not two, but 3 frog splashes. Hook kicked out, and then Christian hit a spear, but Hook kicked out at 1. Hook then made a comeback, and we had the people outside, Nick Wayne, interfering, and you had Shibata coming out there to even the odds. Hook was able to apply the red rum on Christian, but then you had, who's the other guy? Kip Sabian, him and Nick Wayne got in the ring, causing a disqualification. They continued the beatdown after the match, but then finally Samoa Joe ran out there to make the save for his buddy Hook. You know, they became friends after their world title match a year ago. And Samoa Joe's back. He was gone for about 6 months. He was filming that series. And the only thing I'm wondering is, what about Chris Jericho? Wasn't it Jericho that put Samoa Joe out of action in storyline? So, yeah, I guess we're all supposed to forget about that. He came to the aid of his friend Hook, and we'll see what happens next. They did the DQ finish. It's like whatever. But yeah, Samoa Joe came back, so we got that moment. The drywall. Thank you for that, Jerry. Backstage, we had Dustin Rhodes meeting up with Jeff Jarrett, giving him a pep talk, saying MJF is a disrespectful little shit, said that he's fully behind Jeff Jarrett becoming AEW World Champion, said that MJF doesn't know what they've been through, and reminded Jeff Jarrett that outlaws never die. I still don't really care about Jeff Jarrett going for the world title. Nice try, Dustin. You gave it your best. Cue the Simpsons meme, Bart Simpson with the cake. At least you tried. Next up, we had a women's Casino Gauntlet match to determine the next challenger for Mariah May, and that match is going to be at the Grand Slam event in Australia. Mariah May was on commentary for this one to see who would be her next challenger for the women's title. And as Jerry pointed out, the Toni Storm Invitational. We had Jamie Hayter and Kris Statlander starting the match. We had Megan Bayne from Stardom make an appearance in the match. And apparently she wrestled in Dynamite a few times. I don't recall that. Julia Hart came out, and then Willow Nightingale was next. And we even had a moment where Willow and Statlander were working together a little bit, despite their bad blood. Then we had Rocker Toni Storm has not gone back to being timeless just yet. I thought maybe they would do it here, but she did come out as old school rocker Toni Storm, and Statlander took out several people with a dive off the elevated ramp. Then we had Harley Cameron as the last entrance, and then eventually Toni Storm with the inside cradle was able to pin Julia Hart to get the win. So yes, the rookie Toni Storm did in fact win this match to go to Australia. What a shocker. I mean, it's the right booking decision, but man, it was just so obvious this was where it was going. I would have preferred if they had just done like a singles match, Toni Storm versus Thunder Rosa or somebody like that with the winner going on, or Saraya or any number of people. You know, they did this match. A lot of the women got to be on the show, so that's a positive. But yeah, unfortunately, it was very predictable. Toni Storm wins. Not nearly as good as the other Casino Gauntlet matches, by the way. I think the one last week was definitely a better match. And that one they did, the one they did in, I think it was Jacksonville last year. I'm not sure, but the one they did last year was really good. The one last week was pretty good. This one was okay, but nothing special. Main event was Moxley defending his title against Powerhouse Hobbs. I was trying to push for a Hobbs upset victory here. The Death Riders surrounded the ring for distraction. Moxley took a cheap shot, but Hobbs was able to quickly fight back. They brawled in the crowd, and then they got back in the ring. Hobbs bit the ear of Moxley, and Moxley was bleeding all over the place. Moxley's favorite thing to do, bleed all over the ring. And after the break, Hobbs continued his offense. He went for an avalanche power slam, but Moxley was able to counter it into a submission. Hobbs escaped, and then Wheeler Yuta showed up, hit a running knee to Hobbs. Excuse me for a second. Something went down the wrong way. We had the interference from Yuta, and the referee did not see it, of course. Moxley was able to get the upper hand, but then Hobbs hit a spine buster and was perhaps on the verge of winning the title. But then Marina Shafir hit Hobbs with the briefcase. Once again, the referee did not see it. And then Moxley rolled up Hobbs. Hobbs, though, was able to kick out. Moxley hit the paradigm shift, but Hobbs kicked out again. So then Moxley put on a bulldog choke, and that was finally the end for Will Hobbs. He passed out. Jon Moxley, still your AEW World Champion. Match was good, but pretty much exactly how I expected it to go. I did not think Hobbs was going to get the win. They did all the outside interference to protect him and make him look strong in defeat. And then after the match, they continued to beat him down. They took off his knee brace, and then they wrapped a chair around his knee, and they stomped on it. And only after they did this, Adam Copeland, and FTR ran down to make the save after the damage had been done. I don't understand what took them so long to come out there. Like, they were setting this up. Were they taking a shit? All three of them taking trifectas of shits in the bathroom, and they finally had to run out there when they saw it on the monitor? Like, what were they doing? And not helping out sooner? I don't get it. But anyways, yeah, they came out too little, too late. Hobbs has been hurt again. I don't know what that means for the future, what they got planned for him. But I really don't care about seeing Cope versus Moxley. I really don't. If they're not putting the title on Hobbs, which obviously they didn't, then we need to get Kenny Omega or Will Ospreay in the mix here and end this Death Riders storyline. It just isn't clicking for me, and I'm ready for something else. All in all, the show was pretty solid. It was a solid Dynamite, not great. One thing I liked, the venue. I think they're making the right call to run smaller venues, as I mentioned earlier. It was a nice atmosphere. Show was quite predictable, though. Main event, predictable. The gauntlet match was predictable. Omega winning was predictable. We need some curveballs. And even MJF has gotten predictable at this point. Like, you're just wondering, okay, what low comment is he going to make? You're just wondering it, and it just reeks of desperation at this point. But the wrestling was pretty good. It did move at a fairly nice pace, so I'm going with a 6 out of 10. Slightly above average because he had the world title match on the show, even though I didn't think for a second we were getting a title change. But we had a few eventful things happen. You know, they're trying to do some stuff here with MJF and Jeff Jarrett. It was entertaining, but I still really have no desire to see them wrestle. The Death Riders, Calvin, the Death Riders are not like the NWO. They're more like, I don't want to say they're as bad as Aces and Eights, but they're like one of those lower tier heel factions from TNA. Take your pick. And any number of those random ass factions that they would make in TNA with all the top heels. So yeah, not a bad show, but I'm still hoping for more, and I'm still waiting for some kind of a shakeup. Like I want to be able to tune in and be taken by surprise and not know what to expect. And you know, they're just sticking to their formula at this point. Anyways, that's all I got for Dynamite. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate the viewership and support. Now, special announcement. By the way, check out JJ Williams, the Renegade. He just put up a Twitter space, and I'm going to be doing one. The first ever no DQ Twitter space, talking greatest Royal Rumble matches. That is going to be on the no DQ Twitter, no DQ DOTCOM. That will be Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we might have some random speakers on to discuss. Not sure how it's going to go. Trying something different here. Twitter.com/NoDQDOTCOM or X.com, whatever you want to use. Head over there, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, for the first no DQ Twitter space. Have a great night, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe. Say yes to NoDQ.com, and I will see you all next time.